The person my fiancé was seeing found out she was getting married to me on the day of the wedding. He had a heart attack right there, and Camila quickly told everyone that the wedding was off. The bride ran off with another guy after leaving the groom at the chapel. There, I was the center of attention for everyone. The other guests pointed the finger at me and said I was mean and a killer. Even so, I didn't care what they thought at all, but even Camila hit me when she was mad. Why couldn't you have been the one who got sick and hurt badly? I threw away my wedding dress and picked up the phone. I'm okay with being sent to headquarters. The people I had kindly invited crowded around me after Camila left. They were making fun of them. You should say you're sorry if you did something wrong. I will no longer consider you a friend if you don't say sorry to Felipe. Please give back all the gifts I brought, since the wedding didn't happen. This is really bad luck. Their hatred was clear. I didn't feel any pain, though. I didn't pay attention to them, so I left the wedding place right away and threw my tux inside the trash. Few cars went by where the wedding took place, on the side of a cliff. I walked on the road without shoes. All of a sudden, Camila called. As soon as I picked up the phone, she yelled at me. Felipe had no idea about this at all. Why did you tell him about it? She was right. There was nothing she hadn't hidden. The wedding took place on a lonely mountain. Everything had been kept easy. She didn't invite her family or friends. Still, the place felt empty. She raised her voice because she didn't hear me answer. It's a mess now because Felipe didn't like the wedding in the first place. You caused this. When we found out, we couldn't get married. When I heard this, I laughed. Who is he to you? Your mother or your father? Should you ask him before you get married? When I answered, her voice got weak. She spoke again after a long pause, this time acting like she was being kind. Okay. Just say sorry to Felipe. We might still be able to get married if he forgives you. I told her, no need. She was shocked by what I said. What do you mean, no need? Camila laughed, not believing it. Do you mean that you don't want to marry someone? Do not act silly. I didn't blame her for not believing it. We had been together for 7 years, and I had asked Camila to marry me 6 times. Until she said yes, marriage had been all I could think about. Before I could say anything else, I heard Felipe's voice on Camila. Did you tell him you wanted to get married? Camila denied it right away. I'm not going to marry him, I promise. The call stopped right away, leaving me feeling like I had no place to go. All of a sudden, it poured down rain, soaking me through. I woke up when I felt the cold water. My fixation on marriage had finally ended. I had a fever and felt like my throat was on fire when I got home. After taking some medicine, I fell asleep in a fuzzy way. I thought I saw Camila back then. The look on her face was very different from the anger she had shown at the wedding. She gently touched my cheek. She gave me a bag full of expensive things when I sat up. You should still have the ring, even though the wedding didn't happen. When I opened the bag, the ticket was still inside. Since she had just bought it, she hadn't planned anything for the wedding yet. Putting the ring on my finger was easy. After that, I put out my hand in front of her. With just a little tilt, the ring fell off my finger and hit the ground. Is this cat's size? I asked, looking at her with a blank look on my face. As she heard me, Camila's face lit up with unease. Then, to hide her tracks, she said, maybe the designer got the wrong size, which was not what she meant. I'll have it done again. I responded, no need, by snapping my tongue. It was no longer important. When she saw how uninterested I was, her brows wrinkled tightly. Leonardo, can't you stop acting this way? She lost it. I was trying to have a polite conversation with you, but look at how nasty you are being. Let me tell you right now that Felipe will be staying at our house because of his health. It sounds like her long-winded babbling was meant to get Felipe to stay in our married home. I no longer wished to fight. I turned around and went to my room after getting a nod. She thought I had given up when she saw my silence. I'm glad I didn't put your name on the property deed. If not, we don't know how bad this will get. She said something as I left. In the late evening, Felipe called Camila while she was lying next to me. I'm not used to being in the hospital by myself. It makes him feel bad, he said. As soon as she heard his words, she got up and got ready to leave. Right then, my phone rang too. Leonardo, it was my mom. She wished you a happy birthday. Camila could hear her words. Camila stopped in the middle of a step, and her face tensed up right away. It's your birthday today? She asked. Why didn't you tell me before? However, Felipe's crying voice cut me off again on her call before I could answer. She turned around and walked out after a moment of thought. We talked about when she would be back. I didn't feel anything as I watched her determined form fade away. I just said, thanks, Mom, into the phone. I'm going home. Home, my real house. The other end of the line went silent for a long time. That's good, my mom finally said. I'm here for you no matter what. She didn't ask me why I wasn't getting married after all. She knew me well enough to know that I always did the right thing. There had to be a reason. It was late and Camila hadn't come back. The next day I bought a plane ticket and quit my job officially by going to work. It was already late at night when I got back to the flat. It kept giving me an error message when I tried to enter the door code. It made me mad that Camila didn't answer when I called her several times. I kicked the door several times out of desperation. The door finally opened after a long wait. As soon as she saw me, she went on a rant. Joey is now asleep thanks to me. You woke him up with your racket now. I ignored her scolding and asked her in a cold voice, you changed the password. Camila's face showed that she was both annoyed and worn out. Even though she looked like she hadn't slept in days, her voice was rude. Sure, I changed the code. He needs to rest, and you, Leonardo, make this house a mess. When I took a big breath, the knot in my throat got tighter. I wasn't trying to hide the cold feeling inside me anymore. Now this is your house, right? I tried to be calm, but I didn't feel calm. Camila, where do I fit into your life? She groaned and rolled her eyes. I'm done fighting with you. Would you like to come in? Do it now. But don't make any noise. When I crossed the door, I could smell medicine and flowers that had died. Philippe was there, lying on the couch and taking deep breaths. When I walked by, he didn't even open his eyes. My presence was no longer important. It wasn't even a bother. I was no longer there. Camila walked over to him and whispered something I couldn't hear while she changed his blanket. It felt like I was seeing a scene from a life that was never mine. I went to the room that we used to share. I saw something strange in her clothes that were all over the place. There was nothing in half of my closet. There were no more shirts or other things in the places where they used to be. Camila had already started to erase and replace me, and she wasn't even gracious enough to tell me. I went to bed, but I couldn't fall asleep. My mind was going fast. There was no way to build a life with her after all those years of hard work. An addiction that slowly killed me while she played with me like I was nothing. They were like knives in my mind, smiles that didn't seem real now. That echo of I love you was empty. Every moment was a lie I believed without question. The sound of the door opened broke the quiet of the night. I heard Camila's steps going back to the living room. She was probably taking another call from Philippe. I felt like something inside me broke. I stood up and walked to the living room with her. The floor was cold under my bare feet. She stood by me with her back to me and her phone to her ear. She whispered in that sweet voice that used to only belong to me. I'll stay with you, love. Leonardo is going to leave soon. He knows where he fits in. I stood in the doorway and stared at her. My hands were shaking with anger. Leonardo is going to leave soon. I felt like my life and home didn't matter anymore, like she had already made up her mind about this. Callie, who are you? My voice wasn't very loud, but it was strong enough to make her turn around quickly. With surprise on her face, she hung up the phone right away. What do you have to do here? That's the question. Hey Camila, why are you here? In my house. In my life. Could you please destroy what's left of me? She laughed and crossed her arms. Please be careful, Leonardo. No need to be so emotional. Aren't you aware of how weak you are? I must help Felipe. What about me? For the first time in months, my voice rose when I spoke up. Who had a need for me for 7 years? Who fell back on me until someone better came along? Someone used every moment of everything I did and then threw me away like trash. She felt her eyes widen for a second, but she quickly calmed down. You're crazy. You were never pushed to do anything. You did all of those things because you chose to. It's your fault if you feel bad about it now. The laugh I let out was mean and almost crazy. That's right. I did everything I did because I was a lovesick fool who couldn't see straight. Callie, it's over now. It's over. Taking a step toward me, her face was just inches away from mine. What are you going to do? Leave this place like a loser? Scream to your mom. I leaned in close and looked right into her eyes. Camila, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave here with my head held high, and you're going to lose everything. Because you deserve it. I quickly went to the office, got the papers I had left there months ago, and put them in my bag before she could answer. Camila followed me and kept yelling bad things at me. It didn't matter anymore. I went to the bank the next morning and signed all the forms needed to change the title of the house to my name. Something I did that she didn't know about before I sold it. My lawyer told me to keep everything safe before the wedding. He was right, too. She didn't have any rights. I only came back to get my bags. Philippe was still asleep on the couch and didn't know what was going on. Camila stood in the doorway and stared at me with a look of shock on her face. Let me know what you did, Leonardo. What I should have done a long time ago, her voice shook. Say goodbye, Camila. When I shut the door, I left behind more than just the flat. I left behind my whole life. When I called my mom, her calm voice made me feel better in a way I hadn't felt in years. Mom, I'm on my way home. On the other end of the line, she sighed. We're ready for you, son. My phone rang again as I drove. A number that no one knows. When I answered, a strong voice came on. Thank you, Mr. Leonardo. This is the hospital. Felipe's health has gotten worse. And MS. Camila put you on the list of people to call in case of an emergency. My heart starts pounding all of a sudden. There was a part of me that wanted to hang up and move on, but there was also a part that knew I needed to see how far this would go. I'm leaving. I answered without any feeling. I had no idea what the hospital would hold for me. One thing was for sure, this wasn't over yet, and I wasn't going to leave this story without leaving my mark. When I got to the hospital, I was still tired from the last few hours. It was cold and dark in the hallway, and it smelled like medicine and cleaning. The person at the front desk told me that. Philippe was in the urgent care unit after a nurse led me there. This scene made me think of an unfinished nightmare where I was asked to solve someone else's problem. Can you see Camila? There wasn't a strong desire in my heart to see her when I asked. She left a while ago, the nurse said without much thought. Camila did run when things got tough, of course. She always did that. When I walked up to the ICU window, I saw Philippe lying in bed, weak and hooked up to machines and tubes. I didn't feel angry for the first time. I felt sorry for them. Philippe, the man who took everything away from me, was gone, like a boy who needs irony. I had to be kind to the person who had put me down and broken my faith. The doctor walked up and adjusted her glasses. His situation is very bad. We tried to get in touch with Camila but haven't been able to. You are the only person named as an emergency contact. To keep my feelings in check, I took a deep breath. What's going to happen now, doctor? He needs to be moved to a bigger hospital or given care at home. But someone has to pay for it and sign the papers. There was silence in the hallway. Care at home? How much? Camila was giving me another task to do because she knew I would always clean up her mess. Not this time, though. I spoke up and said, I can't help, I have no relationship with him at all. Find someone else to talk to if Camila doesn't show up. The doctor was shocked and didn't say anything. I wasn't there to fix everything for the first time. I was no longer the kind of guy who would save her world. When I left the hospital, I felt a strange kind of relief. Like I had finally broken free from the chains that story had around me. But the feeling didn't last. I was sure Camila would try to get me to repeat the same mistakes. After a few days, my lawyer called me. The money had been transferred, and the house had been sold. That was it. I had a lot of money, a new job at the main office of the company, and a plane ticket to a future that was all mine. But as planned, Callie saw me off. She showed up at my parents' house while I was getting ready to leave. May I talk? Her voice sounded worn out and defeated. She didn't look cocky for the first time. I stood there with my arms crossed and stared at her. What do you mean, Camila? For some reason she hesitated, maybe because she knew she couldn't steer the topic. When it comes to Felipe and us. David, he's in bad shape. You know that I need you too, even though he does. I need you. Words that would have broken me once. They felt empty now. I gave her a mean look. Camila, you don't need me. You need someone to carry the weight of the decisions you make. Her eyes got bigger, maybe because of how cold I sounded. Kindness, how can you be so cold? I'm sorry I did that, but, however, I snipped her off badly. You wasted 7 years of my life. You lied to me, and didn't take anything I gave you seriously. You just want me to clean up after you. She took a big breath in. She was trying to calm down. I do not want to fight. I wish to think about Philippe. You know he's going to die if he doesn't get help. I took a step toward her and fixed my gaze on her. It was up to you, Camila. You were in charge of everything, but you messed it up. Do not put this on me. It's not my fault if Philippe dies. Maybe you chose the same bad things I did. She looked at me like she didn't know who I was. What are you? Someone who woke up at last. I took a big breath. I felt better and said what I had been keeping from you for so long. Leave now, there's no more room for you in my life. Camila was about to answer, but she stopped herself. She walked away after turning around. I saw her walk off down the dirt road that led from my parents' house. I felt like the pattern was broken for the first time. I got a new job in a different place after a few months. I had finally made my life easy and controlled, and the past was no longer a part of it. My mom called me one Friday afternoon. Leon, did you hear the news? What the heck happened? She thought about it for a moment before going on. Camila is on the news because Felipe. It looks like he owed a lot of money. She lost everything, even the house where they lived. There is a long pause in our conversation. I wasn't happy or sad. It was just what would happen because so many bad choices were made. That's a shame, I frankly answered. My mom added, sounding worried, She tried to get in touch with you. I didn't give her your number, though. Thanks, Mom. There's not anything else to say. After hanging up the phone, I looked out my apartment window. The city was alive and full of people moving around. A fresh, ghost-free new life opened up in front of me. It was too late for me to reach out and help Camila, because she had already fallen into the hole she dug for herself. That night I saw a couple laughing together and giving each other loving looks as I walked through a park near my house. This time, the pain in my chest was different. There was no desire, or hurt. There was hope. I might be able to love again someday. It's possible that one day the past will only be a dream. I was ready to move forward this time.